The League of Women Voters of Lane County and the Siuslaw Public Library District wish to welcome the two candidates for County Commissioner for West Lane, Dawn Lesley and Ryan Ceniga, and thank you for participating in today's forum. We also welcome our audience and thank you for taking the time to learn about your candidates' positions. My name is Paula Grassapi and I'm Voter Service Chair for the Lane County League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan organization that has been registering and educating voters, fostering civil discourse, and supporting voter rights since its establishment in 1920. We encourage informed and active participation in government and are pleased to partner with the Siuslaw Public Library District for this candidate forum. Meg?
And the Siuslaw Public Library District is just as pleased to be partnering with the League of Women Voters of Lane County. Our library, and most libraries, is committed to the public expression of a variety of ideas and provides space, both digital and physical space, for the public expression of a variety of ideas and non-commercial material and opinions. That being said, the library does not endorse any candidates or political views, but we partner with nonpartisan organizations like the League of Women Voters to provide information that better informs our community and our patrons. Any opinions expressed today are those that belong to the participants and not to the library, but we're excited to hear what they have to say. Thanks.
Okay, today's format will allow candidates a 3-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Each question will go to both candidates, who will have 90 seconds to respond. There will be no rebuttals. We will proceed in alphabetical order for opening statements and reverse alphabetical order for closing statements. The audience may post questions for candidates on the Q&A function of the webinar. Questions will be asked starting in alphabetical order and alternating for who answers first between the candidates. We ask that out of respect for the audience and each other, candidates adhere to the time allotted. Now I would like to introduce our moderator, the Honorable Jack Billings, who retired in 2011 after 18 years as a Lane County Circuit Court judge. In addition to his previous service on school and transit boards, he was also elected for 8 years to the board of the Lane Electric Cooperative. In recent years, he has also become a well-known local author. Judge Billings, I'd like to turn the meeting over to you now.
All right, well, Paula, thank you so much for the introduction. It was very generous. And welcome to everyone, including especially the candidates who have taken the time to be available with us this afternoon. I'm going to call on the candidates for a 3-minute opening statement. Alphabetical order begins with Mr. Ceniga. So, sir, your opening statement, please.
Hello, my name is Ryan Ceniga, and yes, we are running for West Lane County Commissioner. I'm a third-generation Oregonian. Been in West Lane County for about 40 years now. I was born in Coos Bay. Like a lot of kids in our rural communities, I grew up working on the local farms. Was a diesel mechanic for a while, framed houses, and then went to work for Junction City Public Works. When I left there, I was the supervisor of the maintenance department. Taught me a lot about budgets, allocating, and how public funding works. From there, I went to eWeb, where I am a water distribution manager and currently overseeing 37 different projects. I'm also a member of the Junction City School Board, where my 2 daughters attend. They are 13 and 16. Happens to be the same school that my wife and I met in quite a few years ago. A lot of people have asked me, Ryan, why are you running for this position? You've got a great job. You're home every night. There's a little bit of a story. Biggest thing is I had a friend in Texas. He's always trying to get me to go down there and work for him. One of the days I said, are you serious about that? And he said, absolutely. But if you leave Oregon, who's going to stick around? And it kind of resonated with me. It wasn't long after that, a couple of people talked to me and said, hey, have you thought about running for county commissioner? We need someone that's going to be loyal to our rural communities. And that statement also stuck with me. Lane County needs a bit of an attitude shift right now. We really need to work on prioritizing public safety. We've got deputies that that are just overrun currently. I went out on a ride along with one of the sheriff deputies, Deputy Keegan, 10 hours, and that guy was running and running and running. I said, after a couple hours, I said, Keegan, you were the best multitasker I've ever seen. He turned his computer screen over and said, I'm not good enough. It's just full of cases that we had to get to that day. We had a homeless girl or a gal the other day, 12-year-old girl, a homeless guy on a bicycle chasing her down. Luckily, one of our public works employees saw, came up, stopped it, called the police. Guy got away. There's just not enough deputies around to find these kind of people, and it's really scary. That could have gone a lot different. I've got some great endorsements. Representative Boomer Wright, a lot of small businesses, and these are people that have faith in me. So that's why I'm running. Thanks a lot.
All right, Mr. Ceniga, thank you very much. Ms. Lesley, please.
Thank you to Paula Grisafi and the League of Women Voters and the Siuslaw Public Library District for your excellent work supporting democracy. Thank you, Judge Billings, for being here. And thank you to everyone who is here tonight. Healthy democracy depends on citizen participation, and I'm delighted to be here with you to help our democracy thrive. Neighborhood meetings are turning into shouting matches. A network of secret safe houses is forming to help people get from one state to another to access basic reproductive health care. Voting rights are under assault. Elected officials and their staff are under assault. Scientific knowledge is being denied to benefit a few wealthy people. Elected leaders from Florida to Oregon are spewing lies to rile up people's fears. Our democracy is under threat. I am Dawn Lesley, and with a fierce sense of urgency, I am running for Lane County Commissioner. I have been an environmental engineer working on sustainable water and energy projects for over 27 years. Meanwhile, I can no longer sit on the sidelines while critical challenges escalate in our community. Lack of affordable housing, impacts of climate change, public safety challenges, a mental health crisis, water quality and quantity problems, and wages that don't keep up with the cost of living. I'm also deeply concerned about efforts to exert government control over people's most private and personal healthcare decisions. Women are paying attention. The future of our community is on the ballot on November 8th. For over a year, I've been knocking on doors throughout the West Lane District, Republican doors, Democratic doors, independent doors. It is striking to me that across all these so-called political divides, we all care about many of the same things. As commissioner, I'll especially dedicate my efforts to moving the county forward on affordable housing, finding stable, long-term increased funding for rural sheriff's patrols, and on strengthening and implementing our climate action plan. Of course, there are many other important priorities as well. I've mentioned some of them, and I look forward to taking your questions and discussing your priorities.
All right, as you folks know, I'm going to be asking questions that have been sent to me, and each one of you will have 90 seconds. And then the other candidate will have an additional 90, but there will be no rebuttals. So I'm going to begin with Ms. Lesley, since I gave Mr. Ceniga the opportunity for the first opening statement. So, ma'am, what kind of actions do you think need to be taken by the county as a result of the economic disruption caused by the pandemic and regional wildfires in order to help local businesses?
That's a great question. Local businesses have been hurting, and they've been hurting not just from wildfires, but from other impacts of climate change. Farmers have been suffering for over 13 years with a drought in Oregon. So we have had economic impacts of climate change and happening for quite some time. And of course, the pandemic only exacerbating as these challenges. One critical piece for the rural commissioner to be focused on is broadband internet. There was a time when internet was only available to wealthy people, when electricity was only available to wealthy people. And at a certain point, we realized that it had to be available to everybody, and it was a public necessity for doing business. And electricity was brought to the farthest reaches of our communities. We're in that place with internet right now. Internet is a key for being able to do business anywhere. And throughout our county, it's just not equitably available. And it's hurting our businesses. It's also hurting school children, as we saw during the pandemic, because it's becoming more and more important for kids to have access to internet. So that is one thing that Commissioner Heather Buck has worked on very hard, and I would be happy and delighted to help bring rural, especially broadband internet access, more universally available throughout Lane County. Another key piece is protecting and promoting protecting Class 1 and Class 2 soils and promoting more local food production.
Very well, thank you. Mr. Ceniga, please.
Well, yes, we've had quite the couple of years here in the Willamette Valley. One of the things I feel that's really shown through in this is we have to keep our infrastructures strong. When you start taxing your infrastructures beyond what they're capable of, forest fires happen. We've got to maintain we have to maintain our power lines. One of the things I've learned working with eWeb is how critical it is to maintain the underbrush under these lines. It's something that we need to focus on. We need to mandate, and we need to stay up on these mandates. I've talked with a lot of the farmers through these pandemics, and the biggest thing they're concerned about is more restrictions. They're doing what they can just to survive. They need to know that we are there to support them. We are not there to require more of them at this point. Every one of them feels taxed to the max. They don't have anything more to give. I mean, these are 4 and 5 generation farmers that just can't maintain. They're hanging on by a thread. And when these disasters do happen, we need to help people build. I mean, we have a lot of people out of houses still. And that's something that we really need to focus on, not put more red tape in the way.
All right, thank you very much. To the candidates, it will be no surprise that as you've expanded on your answers, the next questions will maybe be in some of the same areas. So feel free to repeat what you've said, or a different way to put it if you like. I'm going to call on Mr. Ceniga this time for the first response to this question. What should the county be doing to provide for the safety and resilience of our residents and infrastructure in the face of climate change impacts, such as drought, wildfires, and what infrastructure improvements are needed for earthquake preparedness?
That's a lot to get through in 90 seconds. We'll go for it. We've got working with eWeb. I've learned that, well, just for example, if anybody had things to gain by going for pure electrification, no natural gas, it'd be eWeb. And eWeb's actually against it because our electrical infrastructure can't handle it, can't maintain. Same with going full electric vehicles. We don't have the capabilities of charging anymore. We're hydropower. Hydropower is an amazing power, and we are very lucky to have that. But we are reaching the limits of what it can do. Earthquake preparedness, that's boots on the ground. That's having people ready for anything that could happen. We actually just went through a earthquake preparedness class, and a lot of it has to do with communicating with the community. I mean, it's amazing how many people don't have extra gallons of water, no sustainable food, no food that's going to last. These are all concerns that a lot of people have, and they're legit concerns. These are real issues. And there was a couple of them in there, but I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
All right, very well. Ms. Lesley, please.
Could you repeat the question, please?
What should the county be doing to provide for the safety and resilience of our residents and infrastructure in the face of climate change impacts, such as drought, wildfires, and what infrastructure improvements are needed for earthquake preparedness?
So these are critically important issues. We are living through the impacts of climate change, and the county has a very clear role. County can help folks understand, for one thing, that we're going to be living with fire. It's part of our world going forward because we have delayed our response to climate change for so long, arguing with each other, that we are in a place where all of the models show that we are just going to be living with fire going forward. So we need to be prepared. And that means always be 2 weeks ready, hardening existing properties, fire-wise building design, and having evacuation plans in place, getting the word out, especially to rural folks, that they should always be at level 1. And that's not just in the Cascades, but also in the Coast Range. And also doing some power shutoff preparedness so that we're, again, the county can help educate people and help folks prepare, and especially at the wildland urban interface. As a commissioner, I'll work to bring home state funding for emergency management teams. Also, as a water professional, I'm very concerned about water quantity, and I think we could be doing better, because the patterns at which water is falling out of the sky has been changing for the last number of years. And going forward, it'll be critically important to have more water storage in place. And I think we could be looking at water catchment as an opportunity to be more prepared. I'm really excited. I want to say one more piece about how the county is moving forward on putting fuel storage on the west side of the tunnel, which will be real important for Florence to be prepared.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lesley, I'm going to give you this next question first. What steps do you believe should be taken by Lane County to more effectively deal with the county's homeless population?
Well, knocking on doors throughout the district, I'm certainly hearing from, as I said in my opening statement, all of us are concerned about the homelessness crisis. I think it's important to realize that half of the unhoused people in Lane County actually have jobs, but wages are insufficient to keep up with a very, very high cost of rental, much less buying a house. So I'm glad to see the county moving forward with implementation of the Affordable Housing Action Plan, which has things such as putting into place the Navigation Center at River Avenue and Behavioral Health Stabilization Center facility that will help be a place for law enforcement or cahoots units to bring folks who are in crisis, because the mental health piece is real tangled up with homelessness. When folks live unhoused for a long time, they have their mental health goes downhill, and it also is tangled up with addiction. So we need to have better mental health treatment, better addiction services. And the Affordable Housing Action Plan has pieces for, as I mentioned, with for building more low-income housing, and also promoting the development of we need to look also outside of just Eugene and Springfield, and go looking at opportunities in the rest of the county. As a rural commissioner, it's important for me to look out in the rest of the county for those.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ceniga, please.
I think the biggest part we're missing currently is in between. We've got we've got a rampant homeless issue in all of Wayne County, in Oregon, and with Measure 110, it's made it really tough. The Measure 110 has legalized all the drugs. There's no rock bottom anymore, so people don't really want to get better. They just want to get back on the street and do the drugs because it makes them feel good, and it's legal. There's nothing. There's if it's legal, that's the way they want to live. I did a jail tour with Sheriff Cliff Harold, and he had a pretty staggering number for me. 80% of the homeless people they bring in are suffering from mental health issues or drug addiction. And they're in and out within hours. He said the drugs are so strong now, it takes 60 days for them to start thinking clearly again. And we've got to start offering programs that are going to deal with this long term. We have some of these programs have openings right now, but nobody wants to go in because they can get back out on the streets and start doing drugs. We've really got to start this. We've got to solve this at the top issue. Drugs are illegal. They need to start. Drugs should be illegal. We've got to help these people get clean. It's inhumane. Thank you.
All right, very well. Mr. Ceniga, you've already spoken to this a little bit, but how would you address funding and staffing for the sheriff's office to improve response times in rural areas of the county?
Our sheriff's department is tremendously underfunded. Cliff was giving me some, once again, fairly staggering numbers on where the sheriff's department has been and where it's at now. It's unfathomable how far down they've come. And we got into some pretty in-depth, long conversations about that. And a lot of it is because we're not getting the timber receipts we used to. Our county commissioners have voted us out of the AOCC, the Association of Oregon and California Counties. So that is an association that goes after our federal timber money and gets it to the counties. These are huge numbers, and we're not getting those anymore. And that's what our tax rate was based off of. So I mean, Lane County has relatively low taxes, and that's why is we were getting those timber receipts in. So we've got to join the AOCC for one. This isn't something we can tax our way out of. We can't levy our way out of it. Lane County just had a parks levy go through, which is great. Everybody loves the parks. Now Eugene has a parks levy that's going to go through. And then after that, the jail levy is coming. I mean, these are 3 levies that everybody wants that are coming basically all at once. And people are really going to start feeling this if we don't start bringing funding in using our natural resources.
Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Lesley.
Thank you for this important question. Our public safety system is very underfunded, and it is important for us to bring in more resources. It's also important to take some of the load off of them that is inappropriately there. And I'm going to speak directly to this, to what Sheriff Harold described to me and other public safety officers. The mental health issues that the sheriff's deputies have to deal with are a staggering proportion of their daily work. And if we could, so some of those behavioral health treatment supports, the Navigation Center, especially the Behavioral Health Stabilization Center, and more cahoots type units. Both Florence has just had a pilot that's been now made, that was successful and made permanent. And a pilot is starting in Cottage Grove and looking to bring more cahoots services to the other parts of, again, outside the Eugene Springfield, other parts of Lane County will be super important to bring folks. And in the mobile cahoots units are folks who are trained to deal with mental health issues. And as the sheriff described to me, that would take a lot of pressure off of the criminal justice system and the deputies. So freeing up their time to focus on truly the kinds of criminal activities that they really need to be focused on. And then looking for federal and state support to bring in, and also looking to get the state highway patrol to patrol, for instance, Highway 126, so that we get some state support, not just finances, but highway patrol kinds of support.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Lesley. I'll give you the next question then. What is the county's role in ensuring that high-speed internet is available and affordable for the county's population, both urban and rural? What specific steps will you take to see that this is accomplished?
I will be working with the, it is important, the county has a role to collaborate both with the cities of Eugene and Springfield, and also the cities and towns throughout the rural areas of the district, to have public-private partner, and also with businesses, public-private partnerships, bringing in federal and state dollars. LCOG has just hired a broadband strategist, so to help the county get ready to take advantage of some ARPA money that's coming from the federal government, and collaborating with them and making sure that we take advantage of federal funds that are going to be available to help bring broadband out. It's critically important that internet service is accessible to everybody in all corners of the county. And both because, as I mentioned earlier, from the earlier question, the piece about being able to do business out in the rural areas and the far reaches of the county, if you're, say, a farmer or even a small woodland owner, any kind of business that you have out in the rural areas needs internet access. School children need internet access. And also we're seeing more and more people being able to work from home. And that takes pressure off of our roads and pressure off of the traffic corridors. So people being able to work from home is a benefit as well. It's critically important. So working with that ALCOG resource to get more federal and state money and public-private partnerships with businesses.
All right, thank you. Paula, let me ask you, you've just sent me a question that I assume has come into you that seems more relevant at this moment in the proceedings, rather than the question that is next up on my list. Do you mind if I go ahead and ask for this one?
Sure, and in any order you choose.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lesley, I'm going to put this question to you.
Excuse me, were you going to give an opportunity for Ryan to answer that?
Oh, Mr. Ceniga, you want to talk too? Okay, please.
I wasn't going to argue with the judge. I've been to every Grange, every little forum that is in our district here, and I had no idea that the internet issue is such a large issue. I mean, it comes up all over the place. I've been very lucky where we're at. We have great internet, but that's not the case. In the pandemic, homeschooling has brought a lot of these questions on, and you realize that it really is hindering and hampering a lot of the people in our rural communities. The county's role in this is wide open. I guess that's not the term I'm looking for, but one of the things that on the county level we need to do is we need to provide technical support, because we need help from the state. We need help from the feds. I mean, these are huge projects. Broadband, fiber optic, all these different projects, they take a lot of money. And then once you put it in the ground, now we've got to get it to the houses. And right now we've got people with fiber optic, lightning fast internet right in front of their house, but they're looking at $150,000 to get it to the house. Now we've got to look at we've got to help them get that funded, and it's gonna be a task, a little more complex than it appears to be.
All right, well then, Mr. Ceniga, make sure I get you involved in this next question. What should the county do to assure access to quality health care for all of Lane County residents, but especially those in rural communities?
Well, once again, the county has got to be here and has got to look out for our rural communities. That's why if you look at our 5 districts, that's why they're broke up the way they are. Someone in South Eugene, someone in North Eugene doesn't understand what it's like to be in Lorain or Mapleton and not have adequate healthcare right in your community. On the county level, we need to provide assistance in ways we can. Lane County, the Lane Health Authority is a huge part. We need to be there. If people reach out to us, what can we do to help you? And when people are in these kind of needs, we've got to answer the phones to help, to offer these services. One of the biggest complaints I get is you can't get a hold of anybody in Lane County. they call and nobody answers time after time. And that's a pretty helpless feeling when you're out somewhere and you need help and nobody's there.
All right, very well. Ms. Lesley.
Could you repeat the question, please, Judge Billings? I want to make sure I answer all the parts. of it.
Sure. What should the county do to assure access to quality health care for all Lane County residents, but especially those in rural communities?
Thank you. I was pleased and impressed with the county's response to the COVID pandemic. And I hear actually from all parts of the district that folks felt that they had access to vaccines all the way out. There were clinics put on in a lot of different parts of the county. And I think folks felt like they were able to access vaccines, and that was very important. And I think a example of something the county has done right recently in public health. I am very interested in seeing mobile health units come out to the rural areas, much like Cahoots the mobile Cahoots unit was a pilot to see how that would work, and that worked well, and it's now being put into place more permanently in Florence. I think we could look at mobile health units, and I know that actually that the county is considering that and talking about that, and I'm very much in support of that. Bringing mobile health units out, they can go anywhere that there's a road. You can take it out to the small towns and outlying areas on some kind of schedule that allows folks to not have to travel to, say, access basic health services. I think that's something to look at. And I am in favor of that. I'll leave it there.
Very well. All right, I'll go back to the questions that were presented to me earlier, and I'll begin with Ms. Lesley. The county commissioners used an independent redistricting committee to draw new county district lines, which was done by a new ordinance. A permanent change would require a county charter amendment. How do you feel the process worked? What would you do to improve the process? Would you recommend a charter amendment to ensure the change is permanent?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. Back in 2010, the redistricting was very controversial, and the commissioners were right in the middle of it. And it ended up leaving a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. A lot of people were very upset with how that went. It had certainly had the appearance of a gerrymander, and certainly it wasn't transparent, and a lot of people were upset. I will say, I think dividing, however you slice it, it's going to be difficult, always difficult. Every 10 years, you have to redistrict based on the new census, and that's going to be a difficult challenge for anybody. I think the process that the commissioners put in place this time was much more transparent, and it kept the commissioners themselves out of the process, which I think was much more fair. Yes, was everybody happy? No, I think it's a tremendously difficult thing to do, but 15 citizens, volunteers, got together and spent hundreds of hours putting together dozens of maps and came up with three options that then were given to the commissioners to decide on, and then the commissioners had to vote on one of the three without messing with it, without just taking one of the three options. That was a far better process than what happened in 2010, because it was led by citizens, it was transparent, and the commissioners couldn't monkey with it, and certainly nothing happened this time behind closed doors. As to whether it should be a charter amendment, that's a legal piece that I don't know enough to know if that's the right way to make this better process last.
All right, very well. Thank you. Mr. Ceniga.
Well, I think a charter amendment is something that really does need to be looked at. Something that has maybe a little bit more control. With this last redistricting, one of the biggest things I saw was removing parts of rural districts and grabbing parts of urban districts, and kind of a weird tongue that goes out there, and then you have Springfield coming in over to U of O. I listened to a lot of the public input and to to the redistricting, remapping meetings, and there was some great input. And that redistricting team, it worked very hard. But one of the problems that I saw was the commissioners that picked these groups or their people to go in there. It was clear that there was some bias going on. It needs to be an independent committee that does these things, because there's just too much at stake for redistricting. It makes a big difference on where these areas go.
Very well. Mr. Ceniga, I'm going to give you this next question. Given what happened in the May election for this position, which has required this runoff election, what's your opinion of using ranked choice or STAR, S-T-A-R, voting in state and local elections?
Wow. Well, that's something that I haven't done a lot of thinking of, a lot of in-depth processing of. Is this leaning? I mean, if I didn't see anything wrong with how it went, really. I mean, I think the polling numbers were where we landed. So, I mean, I would say the voter integrity was pretty good. I know the Springfield race was separated by, I want to say, 90 something votes. I mean, that's not a lot, and they didn't recount. So that tells me that everybody's pretty confident in the numbers that come in. When those go through the county clerk, I mean, that's all on the county clerk at this point. I assume it seems to be working. I don't have any concerns or issues with it.
All right, very well. Ms. Lesley, same question.
Ranked choice and STAR voting processes are alternative processes that were specifically relevant and helpful when there are more than 2 candidates on the ballot. So it wouldn't actually have impacted the Springfield race where there were only 2 candidates. But for our race, it would have been a different process because there were 5 candidates on the ballot for our seat. I'm looking forward to seeing, I think it's an interesting development, and I know that it's being implemented in some places, not in Oregon, but it's being implemented in some places. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out, because you hear people talk about how it will make things more fair. And I don't know if that is really how it will go when it's implemented. So it's a thing I wouldn't rush forward to embrace until I had some data about how it's working in the places that they're starting to use it. But I think it's interesting and it's worth looking at, because anything that could help make our voting process more fair and more alive. It's important to me that our democracy is robust and accessible and fair and a living, exciting process. The more exciting a process it is, the more people want to be involved, and the more people we have voting and participating in the process, the better. And so I think that's the exciting thing about it, potentially, as long as it works well.
All right. Ms. Lesley, I'm going to ask this question of you first. What land use regulations would you like to see changed in the county?
Thank you for that question. Land use regulations are important. The existence of urban growth boundaries have prevented Oregon from sprawling all over the place and turning into California. That was what Governor McCall was wise in setting up some of the land use laws to protect the things that we, as I hear at the doors, Democrats, Republicans, independents value, the quality of life in Oregon that is in no small part due to the existence of urban growth boundaries that have protected farms and forests, and the existence of the wonderful coast highway, if you will. The public land up and down Oregon's coast is protected by those land use planning laws that preserved the coast for public access for into perpetuity. And I think those are really important things. And I also think that there are some things that should be adjusted. It is almost impossible to build affordable housing outside of urban growth boundaries, and that needs to change. We need to be mindful how we change that, but it's important that we change that because we need more housing out in the rural areas and in the small towns. And I'm hearing that from Deadwood to Mapleton to Florence to everywhere. And there are places we need to protect class 1 and class 2 soils and protect agriculture and protect forests, and also be more mindful that some more building can happen. And we need to be careful how we do it, but the rule, and I would work with lawmakers in Salem to help make those changes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ceniga, same question.
One of the biggest things I'm hearing out in our forums and different meet and greets and debates is our F2 ground and the large game overlay. People are really, really struggling to build where houses used to be. I was just talking to someone that bought property, had multiple houses on it. They bought the property because it had multiple houses on it, got a demo permit, demoed a house, went to build a new house, or went to build a house back where it was, and the county wouldn't issue permits. They wouldn't let them do it because of the F2 zoning and the big game overlay. That's really hard for someone that bought that property for that. The county needs to be behind them and helping them, not getting in the way. UGBs, we have got to keep an eye on. I mean, housing is such an issue right now. We're going to have to expand. We're going to have to do it wisely by talking to the people. As Don mentioned, type 1, type 2 soils, those are huge. There's only so much of that, and we do need to protect it. These farms that are, they're nervous about getting squeezed out for housing, and I understand why. So those are things the county needs to protect while looking at the UGB. They are making, I mean, we need to look at, if that's the case, we need to look at more HDU, high density unit ground. We need to get some houses built, and that takes ground. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ceniga, I have this question for you. If elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
Well, my top priority is public safety. I've mentioned it, and I'm very passionate about it. I'm actually endorsed by the Sheriff's Department Union. I'm endorsed by previous Sheriff Byron Trapp. And I got those endorsements by talking with these people and understanding their concerns and having the same concerns. Second priority is we've got to get into affordable housing. I was just talking about affordable housing. We've got to get creative. SB 391, HB 2001. I mean, now if we have 2 acres, we can build a second dwelling on it. These are indicators that we're heading in the right direction with housing. And my second one is going to be land use issues in our permitting and planning department. There's a lot of frustrated people out there that are trying to build, that are trying to get permits, and they just can't. We have big game overlays that are really, really hampering people building, and we're short on houses. So we're gonna have to prioritize these things, and we're gonna have to really start working big to little on these issues.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Lesley.
Yes. My top 3 priorities are affordable housing, public safety, and climate action. On affordable housing, we need to fully implement the Affordable Housing Action Plan, which has had more attention in Eugene and Springfield and less attention to the rural facing portions. And one piece is specifically directed at looking for ways, whether through community land trusts and other kinds of mechanisms, to allow more rural ADUs. And that goes to that topic I mentioned earlier about being able to build affordable housing outside of urban growth boundaries. So Cottage Grove has some really great examples of lots and lots of ways to build more affordable housing in a small community. Looking to them as a model is another good thing to be aware of. And also there's a piece of the Affordable Housing Action Plan that talks about doing an inventory of all county property and looking for underutilized land and buildings that could be repurposed into housing. I think that's a very exciting and interesting idea to get that going. It's in the housing, again, the county's affordable housing action plan. I'd like to see us implement that because that has great potential outside of Eugene and Springfield and in these the further reaches of the county, the rest of the county that matters. And it's the rural county commissioner's job to look out for that. On public safety, bringing more resources to the sheriff's department is critical. Federal dollars, state dollars, going to be really important to help better fund public safety, and climate action is a topic that takes a lot longer than I have right now. So my other top priority.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Lesley, then I'll ask you this question. If elected, how do you plan to stay in touch with your constituents?
That's going to be the best part of the job. Honestly, I will be very available and accessible. I am already doing that in the campaign, and that is the best part of campaigning, is speaking directly with folks at the doors and in the communities. I have committed to Florence to hold regular office hours in Florence so that folks west of the tunnel don't always have to come to the valley to see their commissioner. And having that regular contact, being in the community, being in Florence on a regular basis will help me keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening there, have me be accessible to folks, and hearing what's going on the ground in real time is really important. And I enjoy that part. I enjoy continuing to further relationships I have throughout Florence and Veneta and Junction City so that I can connect folks. I recently brought the mayor of Veneta and one of the Florence city councilors to a tour of the port of Coos Bay to see the developments in the port's terminal that they're developing there, to look for ways so that Lane County is at the table, understanding what's happening there, and so that we bring important parts of the county that will be impacted, to the table. We have developed those conversations, get that kind of relationship started. Looking forward to continuing and broadening and deepening those relationships between communities, and just being out in the community and being connected with folks, being a part of what's happening in all the communities in the district.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Ceniga.
Yeah, I love West Lane County. I mean, it's where I've lived forever. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about meeting with everybody in all the little communities I visit, and actually building more relationships there. I've actually been in contacts with a real estate agency in Florence about office spaces and what they want to do. And one of them has offered an office. They have a big building, and I think that would be great. Have a building there or have an office there that I could come to in Florence when needed. And that's going to depend on what the demand is. Part of reaching out and communicating with Florence is going to be making it easier for them to do county things. I was mentioning permitting and planning. Let's help Florence and these rural communities, Lorraine, Mapleton, do some of this stuff online. Let's get them broadband and internet. Let's help this whole thing. Speaking of that port, that's actually Representative Boomer Wright. One of my endorsements. He's the one that got that port funded, and I've gone on the coastal tours with Boomer Wright, and it's great. I mean, driving around these communities with a state representative, pulling in places and meeting people and handing out cards, and answering your phone every time somebody calls, and following through with what you'll tell them you'll do. That's my plan.
All right, well, thank you to both of our candidates. We've reached a point where I believe the questions have been presented to them. So I'm going to call on the candidates in reverse alphabetical order for a closing statement. And Ms. Lesley, please.
Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you to Paula and to Paula Grisafi and the League of Women Voters in the Siuslaw Library District for supporting democracy by putting together this important event. Thank you to Judge Billings for moderating with us. We've covered a wide range of topics. It has been my pleasure and honor to discuss them with you. I'm Dawn Lesley, and as Commissioner, I'll especially dedicate my efforts to moving Lane County forward on affordable housing, finding long-term stable and increased funding for rural sheriff's patrols, and on strengthening and implementing the climate action plan. My opponent has framed this Lane County election as urban versus rural, and I think that's us versus them nonsense. This is not a game. Urban and rural parts of the county have always depended on each other, and we're lately more interdependent than ever before. We will rise together, or we'll fall together, and I propose working together to ensure that our kids and grandkids have great economic opportunities and a high quality of life throughout Lane County. You need to know that I'm the only candidate in this race who has earned the backing of a long list of lawmakers, from Congressman Peter DeFazio to our next Congresswoman and Oregon's Labor Commissioner Val Hoyle, to Oregon State Senator James Manning and Oregon's House Majority Leader Julie Fahey and many others. I'm the only candidate in this race who has earned the endorsements of mayors, city councilors, and business leaders in Florence, Dune City, Junction City, Bonita, and Eugene. I'm so proud and honored to have earned the endorsements of many trusted labor unions, including AFSCME, SEIU, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, educators, carpenters, plumbers, and many others. And at this critical time, while my opponent joins the ranks of extremists turning back the clock on women's freedom, I'm very proud to have the endorsement of Pro-Choice Oregon, Mother PAC, and the National Organization for Women, because they know I'm the only candidate in this race who will protect women's right to control our own bodies. Voter turnout will be everything in this election, taking us forward. We cannot afford to go back. For more information about me and the campaign, go to dawnlesley.org. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. I'm Dawn Lesley, I'm your neighbor, and I'm asking for your vote.
All right, thank you very much. And Mr. Ceniga.
Well, thank you guys for putting on this forum. It's been great. Thank you, Judge Billings, for moderating. I know a lot of work goes into these forums, and we take them very serious. So as you guys can probably tell, I'm not a career politician. I'm sure you can tell by now, but I got into this because I am passionate about Lane County, and I'm passionate about our rural communities. It's not rural versus urban. It's just giving rural a voice at the table. Everywhere I've gone, and we're talking about the coast, everywhere, Lorraine, Mapleton, they don't feel like they have a voice. They feel underrepresented. Giving them a voice isn't a bad thing. We've talked about public safety a lot. My opponents talked about public safety, and she's prioritized climate action plans. She has prioritized not harvesting timber over funding our sheriff's department. We have to look at what we're hurting for in Oregon or in Lane County right now. What we're hurting for is public safety. A climate action plan that they voted in would have paid for 2.5 deputies. We pulled out of our Association of Oregon and California Counties timber money. That cost us, at a minimum, $8 million to the general budget. These are huge, huge decisions that really shows where our priorities are. And yes, I am pro-life. That's a decision my wife and I made many, many years ago. I have a 13 and a 16-year-old daughter. They're my world. These are tough decisions, but those are my personal beliefs, and that is how I feel. My name is Ryan Ceniga. I'm running for West Lane County Commissioner. I've got some great endorsements, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to both of our candidates. It was a very educational opportunity, I'm sure, for the voters in West Lane County. Ms. Paula, is there anything else before we wind this session up?
Well, again, I would like to thank the candidates, the audience for watching, the Siuslaw Public Library for helping, for collaborating with this forum, and you, Judge Billings, thank you very much. A link to this recording will be available on the League of Women Voters of Lane County webpage and on the Siuslaw Public Library District's YouTube channel. So again, thank you, everybody, and good evening.
All right,
Thank you,
Thank you,
Paul.
everyone.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.